Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. And tonight, we'll be looking at the topic, managing HR in the startup. Our facilitator for tonight is someone very special to us and to me, a very dear friend, sister, colleague. Her name is Dr. Elizabeth Okonji. And I'm going to introduce her very quickly, even though to many of us, she needs little or no introduction. She's the founder of Fractional Chief People Officer and board member. She has over 2 decades of HR experience. She also has a Master's of Science in Human Resource Management from the prestigious Robert Gordon University, Aberdeen. Very early in her career, she pivoted from practicing IT to people and business course. Again, she has gotten numerous recognitions and she has been highly celebrated and decorated. She got the award of top 20 disruptive people leaders in Nigeria. She also got the award of the most visionary women leader in HR, amongst others. She's an ICF accredited coach, speaker, certified learning experience facilitator. She's a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Development, CIPD. It's also a fellow of the Institute of Leadership Management and Manpower Development and the Institute of Management Hacking HR Experts Council. And she's a certification faculty and also lead ambassador for Transform Lagos chapter. I'm tempted to say Nigeria, but let's say Lagos chapter. She's passionate about helping companies and their people grow in the ladies and gentlemen, speaking to us on the topic, managing human resources in the startup and tech ecosystem. We are privileged, blessed, fortunate to have with us tonight, at last, Dr. Elizabeth Okonji. You have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you, my big brother. Okay, so everybody just please confirm that you can hear me. That
yes, we can.
Going well, okay. So as usual with these things, I have on standby almost every internet provider that gets to my house. So if we hit any snag, I would just appreciate it if someone sends a message, like put in the chat box that I'm breaking up or something, and I will switch. Okay, thank you, Prof. Dr. Yemi, for that introduction. I am actually happy to be here. It's been a while. He has been on my case for this. I think this topic is one that a lot of people, because we're in a sort of startup, should I say, acceleration phase. And I think it will be very interesting for a lot of HR people. So reach out to as many as you can, because this is important. And I'm going to be talking from a lot of personal experience, because I've spent a lot of my career working in startup organizations. Some people say that's sucker for punishment behavior, because even when I had the opportunity to work in corporations, I felt I needed to go back to the startup world, because that's what I'm doing now. I'm supporting startup businesses. So talk about what's the difference between being HR in a corporation, being HR in a startup or tech. Okay. So yeah, he's giving that introduction. Today, we'll look at the key goals, what I'm hoping to pass across to you today. We'll compare what startup and corporate HR is like. We'll talk about the unique challenges that plague startup and tech HR people, and what superpowers are required to survive or thrive. And we'll talk about data-driven HR. There's no conversation about HR effectiveness that should be happening in the world today that shouldn't include data. Then we'll talk about what are the essential skills that pull together everything from the challenges that are faced in this ecosystem to driving with HR in this ecosystem to dealing with data. And then we'll talk about how to prepare for the next 5 years. Then I'll give you insights, talk about experiences. Then over to you with Q&A. If you are okay to proceed, hit your button. I just want to be seeing all the reactions. Thumbs up, proceed, so that I know that people are actually listening. When we do virtual conversations, I like some engagement. And even if you don't speak, you can just put your reaction. If you don't know where to find the reaction, it is in the ribbon. Depending on how you've set up your Zoom, it's either at the bottom or at the top. And you can just click and react. Thank you. Also, Sohe, Masking, Infinix X is 5 to 8. Thank you. Uncle K, everybody's uncle. Thank you for everybody for that. So today, hopefully, when we're done, you will be able to understand what these unique challenges are, what your superpowers are. We'll explore some useful real-world example, real life, yeah, and we'll talk about the future skills and hopefully share some actionable steps that you can use to prepare. So I'm getting right into it. If you were to hear, so before you read this, maybe I go back a little. Can you type in the chat when you hear startup or tech ecosystem, what do you think about? What comes to your mind? Thank you. I'm seeing in the messages, people are saying proceed. Awesome. Thank you. Ayomide, Mary, Shine. Hi, Shine. Bukola. Wow. So guys, when you hear startup, Ayomide says agile work environment. Who else? Who else? Startup equals more work. I know, right? Martin says broke. Oh my gosh. That's rude. Fumilola says a young company from 1 to 5 years old. Okay. Victor Ago says small companies. Bukola says for startup, new business. This is very interesting. A small company just starting out. Thank you, Shine. Startup is an upcoming company. And everybody's dropping interesting insights. So this is, pardon me if I'm looking up, I'm using a screen that's above, and then I'm looking at you on my small computer. So yeah, when we hear startups, I won't lie, in my mind, when I think of startups, because right now my business supports startup, I think of chaos quite a bit. I don't think of broke because some have actually been successful in raising tremendous funds. So they're not all broke. Yeah. Ayomide says big dreams, small money, and looking for funds. Justice for startups. But anyway, we move. And everybody, everything here is actually true because it's from experience. When what you experience from the startups around you is what we put down. All of this is true. I run a startup. And yes, maybe Marcin is saying is giving insider information because yes, we're looking for money. But startups exist to sort of tackle new problems, to invent. Therefore, they are experimenting. So we go to the slides. When you see a startup, most of the time nowadays, they're wearing sneakers, t-shirts, some wear slides. Some HR people tell me they have to battle with employees who want to come to work in slippers. Whereas in big corporations, it's not even heard of. If a head of HR from a big corporation comes to a startup, there's usually a culture shock because there are many things that you see that you wonder, what's going on here? However, corporations, the ecosystem is usually, and there are tech corporations, by the way. So tech companies can be established, structured, organized, traditional. If you think about the IBMs of this world, maybe Google to some degree, Microsoft to some degree. If you think about all the companies that are saying come to the office now, even though they are tech firms, because there is not enough agility to manage people in the world of work at this point. Yeah. But startups exist that are created on the premise of fully remote. They are just built from day one on the fully remote premise. So a corporation is steeped in predictability. There is a lot of standards that have been put into work. They've gone from startup phase into established phase, basically, to use lay terms. If you are familiar with the Grainer growth model, just put a thumbs up or type Grainer growth model. If you're familiar with it, the spelling will show. So if you are familiar with it, just type the spelling Grainer growth model. There are different stages of the life cycle of a company according to that. And for corporations, they would have scaled past a lot of these stages. So is there anybody that has put it in there? Anybody? I'm waiting. Who knows it? Or who is a fast ChatGPT Pro or Google aficionado? I'm waiting. Oh. Can you guys still hear me? This one, let me just be sure that I'm being heard.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, awesome. Okay. So I'll take it that Grainer growth model is a new thing. So I will type the spelling and then you can go Google it. Yep. Check the charts. I've put it in there. Go and find out some more. So there are different stages. So for a startup, it is important to be fluid. They're talking about businesses who start maybe with two people, two co-founders, and they have big dreams, according to Ayomide, and they want to grow fast. So they need a lot of money. So they need to use limited resources, create an experiment with speed. So for them, risk tolerance has to be high because you're experimenting. You have to, ask for other people's money, venture capitalists, angel investors, all of that. You need to be creative because people who are, should I say, startup talent that are focused on working on talent, they're really mobile. They will go from your startup to another startup to another startup. They too are running their own startup economy. And you have to be creative. You have to be thinking about scalability. How do you grow? How do you grow fast? How do you make sure you are not stuck in repetitive processes that take your time? How do you compare? Because the startup world is actually really global. How do you compare your peers across the globe? And in these types of teams, there is not a lot of hierarchy. You have the founder, co-founder, maybe, and then the rest of the people. In some cases, depending on how early. In some cases where there's maturity now and there is enough funding, you can then have another layer of management. And this layer of management is usually made up of younger people who are actually learning management on the job. So everybody's learning on the go. You have flat team structures. There's not much of, oh, I've stayed here 2 years, I need promotion. That doesn't really always happen in startups. However, if you go to the other side for corporations, there is hierarchy. It is actually part of the DNA of a lot of the corporations that the strata in the organization is clearly defined and there is progression. You have succession plans, career progressions that can actually work, except for maybe, the ongoing talent mobility, talent immigration, as we say, JAPA. So corporations are built on standardized processes, clear policies. Policies have to be clear. There are precedents that are not, they know that actions or practices set up precedents that have to be sustained, because if it applies to A, it has to apply elsewhere. So they're usually careful with rocking the boat. And the focus is long-term stability. Change is gradual. If you understand or you've experienced this before, I'm sure a lot of people here working in structured traditional organizations, the appetite for change, for that fluidity of change, has a lot of red tape. People are careful to rock the boat because there is a lot of depth and structure that if you make a mistake and it is not really considered change, if it's not change that has been duly considered, you can go and disrupt a lot of things. Nobody wants that. So the tolerance for risk is really low. The companies are not run anymore. They've reached, most of them have reached a level of maturity where they're not running on other people's funds anymore. They're running on profits that the business is generating, and then they're running on maybe collateral loans that they can, because of the size of the business, generate. There is a job security proposition to the employee that you get because this is a long-standing organization for most of you. So I'm generalizing a lot here, but we're using these stereotypes to make the point. Now, rather than thinking about scaling, rinsing, repeat, dropping, pivoting, corporations are thinking more about operational efficiency. You know that you have laid out steps. You want to make sure that those steps are operating and that there is interdepartmental effectiveness going on. And the hierarchical setup is usually clarified. Solutions have been tested. They are trusted. Change is not really encouraged. And stability is the value. So if nothing is disrupted, then that's success. Whereas for a startup, you want to disrupt, you want to pivot, you want to change. There are examples here in how some of these organizations are built and how they work. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. So coming from this explanation, let's now focus on the tech and startup ecosystem. We've talked about how there is a need for funding. There's the need to pitch your dream, to pitch the validity, the proof of the concept of the problem you're trying to solve so that other people can give you their money to run. Now, because you are a startup and we're talking of tech and startup, and startups are not always only in tech. You can have agri startups, you can have design startups, textile startups. You can have, as long as you're a business that is in early stages of establishment, you're a startup. Now, it just so happens that starting a business in this era, this world of now, the world of the now of work, you have to leverage technology. There is no starting a business that's not leveraging or using or built around technology, or at least thinking to leverage technology. And because of how the world is changing, there are new tech innovations coming. The problem that your business exists to solve, your startup that you created today exists to solve a problem, in 3 weeks, an AI tool might have been created to solve that problem that your entire business was built around. And what do? You don't pack up shop. You have to pivot. You have to find ways to change, to disrupt yourself and solve another problem or solve the same problem in another way. So there are rapid needs that need to be met. And a lot of this is driven by people and the funding for the people. Now, in this ecosystem I've just described, you need tech talent. You need people who understand technology. And the competition for these people is rife. And they are very mobile. So you're building a startup that needs to leverage technology because of the age we're in. We're in the AI dispensation. You need tech talent that understands. Tech talent is the most mobile and they are the most competitive. So you need to have retention strategies. You need to have attraction strategies. Means that you need to have a brand that can attract. People need to know that at least some level of longevity, even if no, longevity is defined by different parameters in this day and age, but whatever parameter is prevalent now is what should apply. Now, one of the challenges that the people function in tech companies and startups is the inexperience of the leaders and the impact of that in culture. If this point I have made resonates from point 1 to 3, if it resonates, just drop a comment in the chat box and just let us know if you have any experience. Talk about it. Is it about the rapid people needs? How many people? I know there's a company that I one day, thank you. There's a company I know that they started out at 20 in the year and now they are like 51. As at the 30th of March, there were 20 employees. They are now 51. They needed to raise funds to be able to hire those people. Half of that population is tech. Yeah. Now, these tech people are on the move. They're on the go. In fact, they want to leave. It's a largely Nigeria-based company. They want to leave Nigeria, but if you can pay them, they would rather work from Canada and be your employee. But you know that those the requirements, you can't be paying somebody in USD conveniently if you are not earning as a business in USD. So companies need to think about that. Now, if you talk about the inexperience of the leaders, a lot of people who start up with a dream, there are not many who have spent 20 years working in corporate world and then switch to owning their own business because they have an idea. They're not a lot. A lot of the startup founders and co-founders are people who had this idea, maybe worked for a year or two in Big Four, somewhere. If you're lucky, they worked Big Four. And then they went to market. The average founder corporate work of experience, depending on the data source you're looking at, is about 5 to 6 years. So imagine it wasn't typically so in the recent past. So imagine these people, and if you've worked for 5 to 7 years only, you probably haven't risen to manage your capacity in a corporation yet. If you were a high flyer, you probably have, maybe. If you were in a proper corporation, you might have gone through some training, leadership training, management training, assessments, all of that. A lot of the startups, the companies that are on now, don't have that. And we all know that culture is started from the top. Culture is built, and the tone for culture is set by leaders. So HR people in these organizations have a different type of challenge to face in terms of inexperienced leaders, inexperienced CEOs, inexperienced founders. But that's not a bad thing. That's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. So it means you have to be thinking differently. Someone who becomes a HR manager or HR business partner in like an established FMCG, for instance, doesn't have to be dealing with inexperienced managerial people. Yeah. You will be dealing with people who've gone through some training. And if they're just not good enough leaders, there will be a plan to develop them. In startups, it's not that way. They are the ones calling the shots. You have to know what you want to do and the problems you need to solve. So yes, I'm seeing it says startup founders usually have a human resource management and leadership problem. They don't usually hire HR managers to handle that part. Tell me about it. So we spend a lot of time in the work that we do in my company now, trying to convince founders to hire HR people early in your business and hire senior HR people early. Yeah, and even if you don't have the funds, remember, we're broke, to pay for that level, maybe consider fractional, consider consultants, advisory, and all of that, because there is a gap. So I think and let's just go into that. One of the things that the HR people need to do now is be aware that these are the things that exist and how do you deal with it? Yeah, we're talking practical ideas now. We're not going to look for research. One Big Four published something about these are the issues. Let's talk about what's happening in real life. Yeah. Now, startups usually have undefined roles, fluid responsibilities. Let me explain what this means. You have one person with one very interesting job title, but that person is responsible for 4 different functions, and they need to be great at all the functions at the same time, because you don't have the funding to hire every single person for roles like a corporation. Corporation can have maybe, I remember when I used to work in a telecoms company, we were about 100 people in the HR department. I think about it now, and that's if there's a startup company that's 100, you'd be like, oh wow, that's large. That was HR department. Yeah. It trimmed down before I left to about maybe 75, but that's still like a decent, big sized startup company. But startup companies will have 20 people. And for those 20 people, there are maybe 11 distinct roles, 11 distinct functions, not roles now. Now, those functions will need one person to probably multi-hat, not even double hatting anymore, multi-hatting. So I was having a chat with someone today and she was asking, excuse me, I have skills from marketing. So I'm like, yeah, we need a skill set. Okay, is it digital or is it, what was the question? Like commercial or something, can't remember. And I'm like, all, it's a startup, all marketing. Bring the skills and apply them to the delivery, to the performance of the functions that are required. And this brings me to the topic that we are in a skills market. If you're working in technology, and if you're aware that the now of work requires heavy lifting in terms of technology, the use of technology, use of data, you know that it's no longer about the job title that holds, it's about the skills that you can perform. Yeah. So in the startup ecosystem, we have to deal with undefined roles, fluid responsibilities, you have to know a lot more about what's happening in your business. You need to be able to step in to cover functional gaps as they arise. So you're not just saying, this person is the manager for social media, and then they can't do digital marketing. They need to be able to design something, use Canva for something. Yeah. Because of these unique challenges that we face, here are the things that need to happen. So in terms of human capacity, this is about managing HR. So hopefully I'm talking to people managers, HR people, and maybe leaders, general management people. You are responsible for finding people for your business, for your team. You're responsible for developing them, grooming them. You're just responsible for making sure that you have talent at the right time, in the right place, doing the right things for your company. So these are human capacity concerns. They are not relegated to people bearing the function of human resources. You need to be able to find people and retain them. Retain them for as long as your company can, so that for however long they are with you, they are performing and they are delivering. It's a competitive market. You have to have action and retention strategies that can outperform your competition. You have to have hiring processes that are scalable. There's no longer the time to you put out an ad and you're reviewing 100 CVs in 3 weeks. No, nobody has time for that anymore. Even the candidates don't have time for that anymore. They don't hear from you. They're on to the next. In fact, you are not the next. You are the parallel. They're talking to several. And it's the people who have the most engaging process, most respectful, the one that gives dignity, gives them hope. Those are the ones that they will respond to. So if you are practicing people management in this ecosystem, you need to be thinking about how to accelerate your talent acquisition and retention. You need to be able to build pipelines. You need to be able to have culture aligned hiring framework so that you are not finding the people and adding them to your business when they are the wrong fit for your culture. I'll give you an example. When I was still in, corporate world, and we were pivoting, we were building a startup out of an established company, and we were trying to hire. So the culture was very different. We're trying to hire new people to fit into this culture because we were in a transformation phase. The first thing I would make sure I tell people who are coming for these interviews is we need people who are rugged. It's tough out here. The world in this company right now is intense. We try to make it laid back. We like, fun. We like people to be happy. But when they're working, you better be bringing 100. You come with your A game. If we are able to scare you enough and you are still interested, then you are like you've crossed the stage. But we don't spend time saying, "Oh, everywhere is nice. We allow you to, we everything is just nice." And then you come in and you find intensity, and you're like, "No, no, no, this is not what I signed up for." And it's just a misalignment. If you know that you need people who will grind right now and who will need to be thinking across streams, that's how you should set up your hiring strategy. Yeah. Now, for startups need to churn results fast, especially when you've collected other people's money. They've added their own requirements for your performance. You are being measured. So you need to cascade that measurement into crisp and crystal clear goals for every individual you've added to the business. It needs to be a high performance culture. And how do you drive that? You need to teach these managers who probably haven't had the experience and the training and the learning to give feedback in a timely manner, in a constructive manner. Yeah, you need to be able to teach them, set up systems that can help them deal with that, set up structures. Because when I asked what comes to your mind when you think of a startup, somebody said chaos, and rightfully so. And it doesn't need to be that way because the startups of today are the corporations of tomorrow. And if we are not intentionally setting up the structures that help us succeed, we will continue being in chaos. And what happens after that? Yeah, we no longer exist. Yeah. You need to be able to create clear, measurable goals, drive accountability and recognition, especially because now you have employees, you have investors, you have customers, you have dreams that you've put out there. You need to be responsible. And that responsibility of the company is not really held only by the brand because the brand is made up of people. You need to be able to drive that accountability to the people. To be able to deliver on this, people need to keep learning and growing from your leadership to the least person on the team. Yeah. Then one of the things that is big now is employee experience. And I've merge these two together intentionally. The experience that you give to the employee as a company is increasingly the thing that will keep your people or the thing that will keep your talented people. You don't want to be keeping people who are either wrong fit or people who are not growing or who have a skills mismatch. As a startup or a tech company, you're constantly in growth phase. You're constantly in build phase. You want people who are ready and who have the skills and who have the mindset to keep building, who are not stuck to a solution that's been defined, that are ready to pivot, change the, the solution in trying to get the same answer. So you need to be ensuring that they are being developed and that the experience you are giving as a business, you are growing as well. You need to focus on employee well-being and talk about how people integrate their life and work properly. This work-life balance is a different conversation. I think in the world of work today, work and life, I don't know how separate they are, that we need to balance them. We just need to make sure we're intentional about the integration of work and life. That's a different topic on its own. Yeah. But helping your employees gain the harmony in life, knowing that at some point there's the priority of focus for high intensity in work. And sometimes the priority for life needs to take center stage. And that's how you create the right experience for your people. How do you drive a culture that helps people use technology properly? And then in terms of using tech for your people things, using technology to find people. Don't sit down and be pouring over 1 million CVs. How do you save data? How do you analyze performance information? How do you analyze engagement data? How do you secure data and make sure that you are compliant with global standards? Because I think I mentioned it already. If you're a tech or startup, you are on the global stage. Everybody's trying to solve the same problem for the world, and you need to be scalable in your technology. If this is making sense so far, give me reactions so that I know I'm not just droning on. I am looking. So drop comments in there. Thank you. Inexperienced managers, a serious issue in startups because no policy or recommendation. Yeah, you will preach and defend like you're defending your thesis. Yeah. Someone says, Ayomide says, a friend is a program manager, HR manager, content lead in a startup at the original role is program manager. So let's just say she's a program manager. Yeah. And program management in a startup is every work, all work. So here are the superpowers that I think HR people need. When we talk about these, talk about these concerns, what do you need? Cluster it. This is not about the skills or the skills for every individual for the next 5 years. If you check any of the research, Gartner series, McKinsey, they'll highlight the top 5 skills for every individual manager leadership. Emotional intelligence is there, critical thinking, all of that. In addition to those, yeah, if you are practicing it, your work involves dealing with people, hiring them, finding them, developing them, enabling them, empowering them, building them. You need to develop these superpowers. So if your function is HR or HR program manager or whatever, you need to develop these superpowers. You need to be the person, you need to realize that you are the person in that startup that should be building a culture of purpose. Whatever that culture needs to be, it should align with the vision of the founders, and it should be enhanced in such a way that it attracts the right people, the people that are right for the business. People in this ecosystem now, they're not just looking for the fancy. In fact, you shouldn't even go to interviews and be asking people, so did you check our website? What's our vision and our mission? They don't know until they get into your business. What are you going to do to make sure that that vision is not something that they just memorized off of a website, but it is a vision and a mission that they can get behind, that resonates with them in their minds, and they can drive everything in this multi-hatting role that you've given them. They know that they're looking at vision. It is from building a purposeful culture. And the job of doing this, of making sure that leaders are focused on doing this, make sure that leaders are developed with the skills to be able to deliver purposeful cultures, lies with the function of HR. Now, another superpower that you need is to be agile in your HR strategy, in your talent strategy, your people strategy, whatever you call it in your company. You need to be able to pivot. Do not stay married to an idea because it was an idea that got, or you built a strategy deck for your team and now things are changing. But because that was the strategy you developed, you want to stay there, and it's moot now, but you want to be there because you have initiatives you were supposed to deliver. HR people, your job is not to deliver initiatives. Your job is to drive strategy. So you must be ready to develop your talent strategy that aligns with the business strategy. Your business is probably unpredictable. If you've worked in an established corporation before you joined a startup, or before your corporation divested and then you were left with a small and then you became a startup, if you had that event, if you're faced in that situation, you will know that you have to be steeped in the business of your organization. You have to understand what you are selling in layman's terms. What are you selling? How do you make money? Where do you lose money? What type of people will help you make more money in the way that your business needs to make money? That's how to think about your function as HR. You need to be able to create the strategy to drive that. And when that strategy needs to change, you need to be able to change it fast. You need to be thinking about the future. You need to buy a crystal ball. Yeah. Check whatever trends, have your pulse on the radar, use data, find out the people coming to this our business, the ones that are performing, where are we getting them from? What are their, like, why are they still here? The ones that are here that are performing, why are they still here? How do we double down on these things that is keeping them here, or that are keeping them here? How do I build a strategy around that to make sure we are doing the right things? We're attracting the right people. We are enabling the right culture. Your processes must be flexible. You must be able to change them. Gone are the day where you join a company and the next thing you do is to start changing the policies or start doing the setting structure in place for a startup. You will spend time doing stuff that will not be used, or stuff that will create disengagement in your organization because you are trying to bring in structure without yet understanding what the business needs. There are organizations that have maybe just a handbook that's like 50 pages, and they just put guardrails, is what I call it, like have a framework for these are the limitations to the things. We will not accept X, Y, Z, and everything in between is okay. We expect you to use good judgment. Now, your responsibility, where it stops for a lot of companies, is they would expect you to use good judgment, and they don't train you or teach you what good judgment is. That's where we get back to culture. If you can't transfer the information as to what is good judgment in this organization, you haven't yet started your job as the HR person in your company. So you need to be able to develop talent strategies that you can pivot, spin around, enhance, and bottle, disseminate. With this, rather, to achieve this, you need a transformational mindset. There is the fixed mindset, there is the growth mindset. I am adding this one, calling it the transformational mindset. It is the growth mindset on steroids. It is the growth mindset for the people management professional. You need to be able to drive transformation. You need to think about where your company is headed, where you are going, and what your business needs to do to make sure you land where you are headed, and to land there fast, because the world is changing. We are living in VUCA times. Yeah, you want your business to be able to deal with that proactively and strategically. Okay. Any reaction or comments at this point? Let me see. I'm speeding to the end. 2 messages. Let's see. Yeah, managing Ibokwe Uchechukwu says, major challenge is managing perception, especially if you're operating as a multinational. Look, this one, it is. So I would say here is, don't focus on the perception, focus on the content, the substance, basically. Yeah. If you have spent enough time building the substance, the perception will align. What we find is that sometimes we are distracted by putting the cart before the horse. We want to manage perception. And when that perception fades, when you scratch beneath the surface, we find a mess. You lift up the rock, the stone, and you find, worms under there. And what do? We just put it back and move away. Focus on building the substance. Focus on identifying, and we'll get there. Use data. So this is game-changing, transformational mindset focus that you should have. If you are on this call, tell your friends, tell your family members that are in HR. It is no longer about winging it, just thinking about, okay, yes, this is what has happened. I heard about it somewhere, just using anecdotal feedback, anecdotal information to run your business. The HR people who will own the day, and HR is becoming more and more important as a function across the globe. But the HR people that will rule the day are the people that know how to use data. And of course, using data means you know how to use technology, because right now, you're not going to be using data with your pen and paper. So learn and do research to find data, how you can use data that's been generated in your company, from your people, from your processes, to predict different things, not just about retention, but about development, about things that you need to do, how to pivot your strategy, how to enhance your strategy, how to advise leadership. Also, now AI is here. You can't even, like, if you're not using even the simplest form of AI now, which is ChatGPT, if you're not using it, I don't know how ready you are. Yeah. You can find ways that you can use the slightest AI tool to improve your work, to take away the mundane things, the things you have to sit down and ponder for. I have experience with someone who would sit and be editing, trying to make stuff concise, when they can easily just take the thing, put it in GPT and say, make this concise for me, use whatever tone and all of that. And you have your concise thing. You're preparing a deck. There's no need to waste time doing all of that. As long as you have the flow that you want, there are ways to do that. That's even with editing. But in terms of performance management, where I think we should be, as startup companies, tech companies, moving beyond just adopting balance scorecard and OKRs and trying to implement it and getting people and sending reminders and telling people, oh, it's 50% completion. We need you to finish it by this date. With the data that you're getting from the actual delivery of people and their jobs, what are you using it for? How do you track that data? Even if you're using a performance management system, what do you do with the information? Do you just use it to say this person got a 5 or a B or a whatever you use in your, and therefore they get promoted or they get a merit increase? Is there other things that you can do with it? For instance, there was an experiment I ran a few years ago in the company I used to work at, which is the graduates that these high performers, can we go and check their backgrounds first? Yeah. And in the last 3 years, the people we've had from these universities have been the ones they've risen to leadership really easily. How do we go and get more? Like for these roles, should we just go and say, oh, we're only hiring from these universities? No, of course not. But how do we go and look for the minute data, the data that says, okay, this is what they studied, this is where they've been, and let's go to all the other universities and look for people who have these combinations. It's hard work, but it's Pareto principle work. It's doing the detail work, doing the hard work to get hard results. Yeah. And as HR people, we need to be ready to be doing the hard work on behalf of the business. That's how we keep that seat at the table. Because now, whether we like it or not, we are no longer asking for a seat at the table. There are demands for the performance of HR at the table. But are we performing at the table? So Gartner says that 70% of the tech firms, of course, we're talking of US companies, are using analytics. Yeah. What will that percentage be in your own locality or in your own organization? What would that percentage be? So for the next 5 years, as the world is changing, as we say in Nigeria, turning on your own, as the world is changing, what do you need as a people professional, as someone who's responsible for how your company finds the right people, delivers on the talent requirements, even in the face of mass global immigration? Yeah, how do you deal with that? We're saying be agile in your strategic development, strategic thinking, be ready to pivot, do your work, partner with the right people in your business. HR people and the finance people should be married. You should just make your CFO your friend. It doesn't matter if your roles are usually, one thinks the other spends too much and doesn't really understand. They don't get it. They don't know the business. Just want to initiate all these things that spend our money. And the other is thinking, yeah, you're just being stingy, protecting. Meanwhile, we need to spend money to get results. Yeah, go and learn their language. Go and understand what they're thinking and communicate in their language. Communication is the responsibility of the person with the information. And communication is not complete if the person you're giving the information does not understand. And how do you know when they understand it? Is that they do something with it. So it's not happened. If you are just sharing information and nobody's doing anything with it, it means you've not communicated. Yeah. So data literacy. Huh. I've said this one already, so there's no need. You need to have data literacy. What type of data is coming out of your business, out of your function? Are you able to use it? Are you able to, like, even if you just ask GPT, we do these processes, what type of data should I be looking for? That's how to use ChatGPT. One of the ways to use ChatGPT, by the way. Yeah. We have this data, we use these tools. What kind of data should I be doing? What kind of reports? And when I have these reports, what can I use them for? I want to think ahead. My company is at this stage. In terms of AI, please don't go and put your full company performance reports with people's names and all of that. Remember, protect data, but you can ask questions and put prompts that protect data. Yeah, ethical use of AI, please. Okay. And then change management. This is a big one. Because when you remember, we said startups are always in change mode. There's always a flux. We're changing. Every day. Today, direction has changed. Next tomorrow, we're going this way. Today, we said we're building this product. Next tomorrow, the product is not required. We need to build another one. You need to be able to manage change effectively. You need to know that your hat, one of the multi hats that you wear as a HR professional, is change management driver. Make sure that your leaders are learning that to implement change, they need empathy. Empathy means putting yourself in the other person's shoes, because you can't just, and this is something that a lot of HR people do. We want to launch an initiative. We're not thinking about the audience and their need and whether they get it, whether they think it's of value to them. It's just launch this initiative. We understand why it is necessary. So do it. And then we start chasing people with reminders. Yeah. Empathy says you find a way to communicate what's in it for the recipient and build around that. Then they become ambassadors for that change, and then they can deal it. Remember, communication is the responsibility of the person with the information. And then you need to be fluent in digital. See, this one, let's just say everybody, doesn't matter whether you're in people, whether you are in, I don't know, cleaning, you need to learn this. The way the world is going, this is the currency that will be dealt. So preparing for the next 5 years. There are many things that we don't know. So you need to be able to learn. Oh dear, I'm sorry. You need to be able to learn. You need to be able to keep learning. I talked about fixed mindsets. We don't want that. Nobody has any use for that. You always want to make sure you have a growth mindset. You can go and Google that, find out about it. There'll be reading resources all over. In fact, ask ChatGPT about it. Yeah. Practice continuous learning. Make sure you are upskilling yourself. And please, HR people, I will beg, do not wait for your company to develop. When you have an idea, you have, there's a goal in your head. It doesn't matter what level you are. You don't have to be the head of HR. You think this is what the organization needs to be doing. Communicating it and making people do something with it is your responsibility. So your job is to learn the best way to communicate that so that it is adopted. That is your job. It is your problem now. You find a way for it to be adopted and implemented. And don't get emotional, take it personally when you make suggestions that are not taken. It just means you've not communicated. Yeah. And that might be your own development gap. Embrace the startup mindset. Don't come to a startup and be trying to make sure to implement the corporation mindset. You will learn. You will know that it won't work because of the type of talent go to startups to work that you can attract. So focus on rapidly learning, focus on being flexible, focus on being able to pivot. Don't be married to an idea. Yeah. Make sure all roads lead to the achievement of the vision that you serve at the pleasure of. You have joined an organization to serve at the pleasure of that vision. Make sure everything is channeling towards that. And you need to make sure you're championing employee well-being. And this is a hard one because first of all, remember, said startups, they are not into spending, except the types that are into spending. Yeah. But startups are trying to do big things on lean resources. And sometimes that can go back into the time. So time is a finite resource. You can't increase it. Where people are multi-hatting, you need to make sure that you are finding ways for your company, for your organization to care about that. Not at the risk of the performance of the company's vision, but to make sure that you are creating synergies around your employee experience and well-being and the company goals, whatever that would look like for you. You have to take time to think about it, do your research, ask questions. In fact, have focus groups and ask people. if you must. And design strategies and be ready to change if it's not working. Yeah. Know that startup is an experimental world. Your leaders will trust you when they know that everything you're doing is towards the goal of the business. And that when you see it is a failing strategy, you are ready to change and admit that this wasn't working, so we're stopping it, do something else. They will trust you more. Your seat at the table will be expanded. Always align HR with the business goals. Please, you are not doing, there's nothing else. If your company does not perform, does not exist, you don't have a HR role in that company. Simple. So you exist as the HR function of that company to make sure that the company succeeds. You now do that by getting the right people and making sure that they are succeeding and know that they can succeed as they make the company succeed. And that's how you create that symbiotic relationship. Yeah. The people don't come before the company. The company exists, then you add people to the company. And the company does not exist without the people. The company cannot do anything without people. So you need to know that it is the same thing about work-life balance and work-life integration. Find a way for it to integrate properly. That's it. And this is my parting message. HR and tech and startup ecosystem is not about following a playbook. There's no playbook for it. Everything changes. You are reinventing and inventing all the time. Create the playbook for your business. Leverage the unique superpowers that you develop. Build and lead your business from the front. And you can shape the future of your workforce. Remember agility, culture of purpose, resilience, and all of that. I hope I have been able to convince you, not confuse you with this presentation. And that's it. So I will take questions now. Let me go and read. If you permit us, Prof, I would like feedback. I like to just know what resonated. I'll share with you the report from this feedback. So you can scan this, guys. Thank you very much. That is the end from questions now.
Thank you so much. I'm tempted to say this presentation was done by a superpower. Thank you. I didn't expect anything less. I got much more than I expected. I was glued to the presentation from the very onset to the very last minute. Thank you so much for graciously sharing with us from depth of experience, knowledge, insights. Of course, it was evident that your background in tech, IT, people management, you found a way to fuse everything into each other. You know how we do, ladies and gentlemen, we allow for questions, comments, and contributions. Don't forget, the questions, comments, and contributions must align to the subject of the day. Take a few so that we can also further get value. Like she said, please scan the QR code quickly as we speak right now, please, so that you can fill it and don't postpone that to a later period. We know you guys are super busy. If you would like to ask a question, share your thoughts or comments around this subject matter. If you raise your hands, we'll quickly enable you to speak in order of how we see your hands. All right. I have a question I'd like to ask Dr. Okonji. And the question is, and this question stems from my experience. I've worked with a few startups. I can mention some of them. You probably know as emphasis on the original owners. So I worked with DueDay.com. I worked with Konga. You know some of those superpowers we are talking about in both now. And so much later, because when e-commerce was very new in Nigeria, I was the first HR for Konga, the first 150 people, I hired them, the payroll. And like you said, there was no playbook. Even though we're trying to see what's Amazon doing, what are all these people, but the customization to the Nigerian context was significantly and different. And sometimes when some people think, why are you this flexible? I say, you don't know where we are coming from. You know, when you're trying to convince somebody from Unilever to come and join Conga, just look at. So you may need to now say, oh, we'll give you a stock option. You know, those kind of negotiation tools that traditional companies may not necessarily be willing to offer you, except you are coming in at a really super high level. So my question is, as HR, if you are HR for a startup that is being managed to be sold versus a startup that is being managed to scale, are there peculiarities in what you can do and cannot do, and how you go about it?
This one is so I found myself in this situation actually. And you're right, because they're very different hats that you need to wear if you are, should I say, fattening up the cow for selling, yeah? And if you are building to scale and for sustainability. First thing I want to tell you is that the founder, the CEO of that company is thinking differently. Any idea you are bringing that is supposed to, we want people to stay, we want to give them stock, we want to do all of this. It's like, why are we doing this? We need this company to look good. So we're back to that person who said perception. We need this company to look like we're making money. So we need this company to look like we have people that can transfer to the business that is bought. We need this company to look like there is some structure. So where you are in a pivot ready or pivot heavy organization, you're trying to say, let's keep pivoting until we find a formula that works and then we can sustain that. For a company that's being ready to be sold, you're not thinking that way. You are thinking about getting to the answer. This is most viable, it's the most viable status. Yeah, the MVP of the company is what you need at this point. So the peculiarity for that I would say is the approach, the lenses that you're looking at, that you're using to look at the business is one, the bottom line for the first one, the need to hand over a system that works or appears to be working will be prime on the minds of the people who are selling so that they can sell for bigger, sell for more. Yeah. The other company is not really thinking yet about profit or profitability. They are thinking about building an organization or institution that can scale and outlast them. You need to understand and do a lot of, and this knowledge is gotten by conversations with leaders, checking information, understanding the trends of whatever reports are being prepared by the business, by the leaders, that are being demanded even. Using data to find out, where are we really? Are we trying to sell or are we trying to build a company? And build your strategy along those lines because they will be very different. I found myself in real life in a company that didn't openly say that they were priming to sell. And the reason why they'd hired a number of the people that they had at the time was because they wanted to have a management team that looked really professional and senior because they didn't have any of that. They wanted to have some structure. So what they brought us in was to come and put in that kind of structure, but to do it fast. And I was joining in saying, this thing you put, it cannot happen now, no. Let's go in, let's find out, let's scale this. And I'm wondering, why are they so impatient? Oh, these guys, this is even worse than not understanding HR. Are you trying to sabotage your business? And then I started reading the signs and sitting in these executive board meetings and reading the sign on the wall, like, oh, wait, though, this is not about building a company that lasts. I'm here with a different thing, saying, oh, let's go and optimize from operations first. Let's go and optimize from here. Let's do this. They were not ready for that. So we had to switch our entire strategy. I had to go and I'm like, okay, first of all, that's not my own personal brand. So it's an indication for me, but I can help you package and build your strategy over the next few months. And that's what we did. We built it out and knew that when a company is buying all these top heavy people that we've brought, the company is not going to carry them as liability. So let's learn how to communicate that first and plan for the exits, the dignified exit of this top heavy team that you brought in. How do we start to structure the things that make us right now look unprofitable, but are necessary if we're building long term? What exactly are we trying to sell? So I started thinking, the operations person, what part of this business is actually sellable? And how do we clean it up and optimize for that? Yeah. So I'm designing deals for staff just in case they don't transfer. Yeah. If there's an acquisition, creating deals, making it structured, trying to clean up all that people operations thing, and then trying to find out what is the viable proposition that we have and how best to optimize it. So it was double hatting again in that startup conversation, but pivoting into this mode of, okay, let's fatten this one up, clean it up and make it nice, put a stamp I can put my name behind because it has to be ethical, and then exit. Yeah. So we're building for an exit and not for growth. They're different things, but you need to know which one you're building for. Otherwise, you'll be developing different strategies and be at war with your management team when it's not necessary. I hope that helps.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Ladies and gentlemen, some things they say they cannot be taught, they can only be caught. So when you are getting offers, read between the lines, ask questions. Sometimes you don't have to ask the question directly. I asked the question directly once, they didn't answer me, but they didn't get back to me. They felt this guy was too,
You knew.
So again, if you are also the HR of such a startup, you need to find a way to communicate with people. You don't want to deceive or lure people in.
Mm-hmm.
For example, you don't want to bring them in, them thinking they are coming for long term. Meanwhile, it may be short term. Because once you sell, you cannot, it's not in all sell clauses that you include clause that you must retain existing thing. That kind of a thing. So it's very important. And this also, you will notice that from Dr. Konjo's presentation, she used the word strategy multiple times today, tonight, this evening. And strategy is the first thing in HR, the business strategy, before the HR strategy, so that we know of all our tools, techniques, which one are we deploying, at what level are we also deploying it? Like we say, it's not best practice, it's best fit. But if you don't have understanding of both sides of the divide, you won't be able to see the alignment and the fit, which is very, very important. One more question. This is a general business question. Again, I am trying to get HR people to think like business people, because we are.
Of course.
Okay. When we say HR business partner, it's not come and go on leave, or your chair, you need to make it agronomical, or your HMO. No. Those are supporting the. Now, quite a number of, say, startups are not profitable, yet they sell. I'll give you one or two examples. Take WhatsApp. Some people don't know that, at least to the best of my knowledge, as at this morning, I don't know about tomorrow, WhatsApp is a loss-making business. So what are the kind of but WhatsApp is probably bigger than almost all the countries in the world, or many countries in the world by population. How do investors think that a loss-making company is bought over by another company? I don't help us get it, so that it will help us think. So that, for example, maybe someone is looking for a job offer, you go and take a pay cut, knowing that there's something tomorrow that can be bigger than just the immediate, profit. Or so. Can you just glean some insights? That'll be the last question for tonight. Okay. You have tried for us.
Okay, so guys, see, there are lots of companies now that are, let's just say they're playing the long game. I will use just everyday speech for this. So WhatsApp that he's saying, you know the amount of data that is on WhatsApp. You can host your business on WhatsApp. There are several companies that existed that weren't even looking to generate revenue or profits from the customer, but they were looking to gain this critical currency that the world actually rolls on, which is data. Yeah. Now, organizations, depending on what your game is and you know what you want to do in the world, you can identify a business that has a playbook that fits into your long-term goals. So you can have a business that says, "Oh, we want to build an app so that people can borrow money." Yeah. Now the people are borrowing, a lot of loans are not performing. People, especially if you're in this place where data is not yet king, yeah, people can disappear. And you're waiting on the banks to help you secure. Banks are focused on another issue that is not your own problem. They're not solving for you. Yeah. But there are companies, when they see the ecosystem that you've built, the tool that you've designed, how you've decided to maybe decide who to lend to, how to decide, um, maybe you are trying to make your business focus not on the loans that are not performing, but on the loans that are performing and upselling to those people. Do you have a system around that? How you identify your customers, how you integrate with your customers. Somebody in the UK can be saying, we've not yet hacked this thing. This company is operating at a loss because there are many factors. They'll do their due diligence and find out what factors it is. And if they think it's mismanagement, then the first thing on acquiring you is to remove the management, right? But if they think, no, it's not management, just their ecosystem, no problem. Let's partner with you. Let's adopt you. And we can adopt that science behind what you've designed and use it to scale up ours, because there's one part of our business, one tiny part that this your big company will just fit into. So you get acquired into like a bigger engine. Some people, self-included, have taken pay cuts to go join companies that seemed like they were not, in that time. And this is why, as HR people, even as people, you need to be thinking strategy. You need to be analyzing the businesses that you're going to, not just for your short-term gain, but just where is this going? What impact is it going to have? What impact am I going to have towards the impact that it needs to have? That's how I think about jobs I join. And some people will take pay cuts because they are calculating that, okay, there's a bigger problem these people are serving, and it's not short term. It's not in the next 2 years. It's in the next 3 years. It's probably in the next 4 years. And they are asking these questions. Your business right now cannot be profitable in this economy. Are you playing for acquisition, or are you playing the long game for sustainability? So I know that I should just just earning low money for now, because if I stay long enough with you, I will be rich. People at InterSwitch today will be speaking a different language. Money Point are speaking a different language, but they were once a startup. They were once not making enough profits. People like where Paystack, let's even go there, were once companies that people were like, why are you in this business? The competition is rife. What's happening? Yeah. So businesses usually are selling and planning. Strategy is not always only about immediate profits. It could be about the long game of, what do we have? Are we selling data? Do we have data that the companies who have money come and look for? There's a small AI development company now here in Nigeria. They are made up of 4 people. They're focusing, not like OpenAI that is trying to do everything, but they're focusing on niche areas, and all of this building products that they know if they do it and do the perception well, and OpenAI will come and ask them how far. If they do it enough, if they develop the competence in whatever niche they're building, and OpenAI is not good enough in that area, and it's just a small part of their business, they will be paid to transfer that skill to them. So in some places, these are the types of analysis you would do, especially because it's tech and startup. Just know that there are different ways, there are different opportunities. It's not only always about immediate profit. I hope I answered it. Hello, Prof.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. Everything you said today was on point. Yes, I'm with you. I said, thank you so much for your response. Everything you said today was on point. But there was one point that took me to another crescendo. When you have, is it a goose pimples or what do you call that? That kind of, you said, and I'm paraphrasing what you said now, and I'm paraphrasing intentionally so that somebody on this call will hear it again. You said something like, the problem some businesses are built to solve, that maybe another business or another individual somewhere is building an AI to solve it.
Yeah.
And then you can wake up one day, your entire business, a script somewhere can write it. And, is very deep. So which shows the need to be agile, nimble. And you kept saying, I don't know if people noticed, because everything you said today, things you repeated were intentional. It was not for a scarcity vocabulary. Use the word pivot. Ladies and gentlemen, some of us need to pivot. And some of us need to pivot. So you pivot in 2024, then you need to pivot in 2025, then you pivot again, or even pivot 2 times in 1 year. Ladies and gentlemen, please, things have changed. That changed. Let me say this, Dr. Elizabeth Okonjo, I must thank you. When they say this is what we're waiting for, my only prayer is that your next appearance will be quicker than but not this year. So please, you can take a break. On behalf of over 70 people who joined the live session, and of course, thousands, hundreds of people who will watch the recorded version, I'd like to express our profound gratitude, appreciation. Again, we don't take this for granted. And I like to say that what you are doing for the HR community, and I will say globally, I know what I'm saying, globally, across the African continent, Nigeria, Lagos, on behalf of all of us who are direct and indirect beneficiaries, I'd like to say thank you. You are doing great things. Please be encouraged that even if we don't say thank you enough, we are indebted to your magnanimity. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll quickly unmute everybody. Maybe you are not planning to talk before. This is the time to say thank you. Let her hear it. Okay? Please, let's thank our speaker for tonight.
Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Awesome.
you
for the presentation. Thank you. We appreciate you.
Thank you
Thank you.
so
God
much.
bless.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you very much for the lecture. Thank
This
you
It
very
was
much.
really a great time with you this
God bless
evening.
you.
Thank you very much, sir, for providing this platform to enrich our professional career. Thank you.